morning, boys and girls. I hope that everyone is doing well and enjoying the sunshine we've had the last few days and have gotten a chance to go outside. Again, I miss you guys and I hope that you guys are doing well. Today, we're going to continue with our read aloud, The Unteachables, and we are on chapter 20. Now, if you remember from last time, we are picking up from Jake Terranova's point of view. I want you guys to take a minute and think why that is such a big deal. Jake Terranova was the student who caused the cheating scandal for Mr. Kermit. And now it seems like he's trying to make amends or trying to get Mr. Kermit to forgive him for what happened. That's where we are going to pick up today. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. Chapter 20, Jake Terranova. As I cruise along River Street with the top down, the red brick of Greenwich Middle School heaves into view. That place used to be a bad memory. I was never much of a student, but middle school was a really tough time. I was lucky to get away with a suspension over the cheating thing. If my dad hadn't belonged to the same college fraternity as a couple of the school board members, I probably would have been expelled. It was that close. Now, though, Greenwich Middle School means Emma. She's the best thing that's ever happened to me. Just the thought that she's somewhere inside that building puts a smile on my face. The smile disappears when I recognize the figure standing at the entrance to the driveway, glancing impatiently at his watch. Mr. Kermit, my old teacher. The man who has every reason to drink from the haterade where I'm concerned. Back in 7th grade, I was so happy not to be expelled that there wasn't another thought in my head. It never crossed my mind that the episode might cause problems for my teacher. Why would it? Mr. Kermit was completely innocent. Who knew better than the guy who was completely guilty? But that's only half of it. According to Emma, Mr. Kermit's life crashed after that. His reputation was shot, his engagement to Emma's mom fell apart, and he got totally burned out professionally. Honestly, I had no clue until Emma showed me the article about the Vuvuzuelas. The fact that the scandal still sticks to Mr. Kermit after all these years is nuts. Not that I ever had the power to change anything. I was a middle school kid in big trouble. I followed my parents' instructions to the letter. Basically, stop it and keep your nose clean. Now that I know the extent of it, I'd do anything to make it right. The problem is, it's too late. Sure, Mr. Kermit is helping me with his class of Unteachable, is letting me help him with his class of Unteachables. And I'm getting along great with the kids. But as for the teacher himself, no dice. I check the clock on my Porsche's high-tech dashboard. It's only 2 p.m. Why isn't Mr. Kermit in school? I pull alongside him and wave. Mr. Kermit scowls at me with what Mateo calls the Squidward Grinch face. That kid's pretty weird, but he's usually spot on. He's nicknamed me Han Solo because both of us are lovable scoundrels. Maybe I walked away from the cheating scandal with a slap on the wrist, but lately it's come back to haunt me in all sorts of ways. Everything okay, Mr. Kermit? I ask. My taxi is late. Right, his car is in the shop. I volunteered to fix it, no charge, but he wasn't having any of that. To say he's as stubborn as a mule is an insult to mules. Hop in, I invite. I'll give you a ride to wherever you want to go. No thanks, he replies formally. I've been waiting 40 minutes for this taxi. It'll be here any second. It's not coming, I persist. Did you try Uber? He looks blank. I remember that Mr. Kermit has a flip phone, and that's probably as old as his car. There are smartphones and dumb phones. His phone is a rock. I unlock the passenger door. Mr. Kermit, please, let me give you a lift. When he reluctantly gets inside and announces his destination, I nearly choke. He's going to pick his car up from Kingston's Auto Works? Are you serious? You took your car 15 miles out of town just to avoid my offer to fix it for free? His response is a heavy dose of the Squidward Grinch face. I don't want to owe you anything. You wouldn't owe me anything. I'm practically whining. I would have been happy to do it. He's sarcastic. Well, as long as you're happy. That's not what I mean, and you know it. I enjoy doing favors for friends. Mr. Kermit doesn't like my word choice, so I adjust. For people I know. You used to be my teacher. I remember. This is it. My chance to clear the air and apologize, but as soon as the thought pops into my head, I know he won't let me. Better to shut up about it. Maybe as the two of us spend more time together, I'll get another chance. And maybe the moon will fall out of the sky. When the Porsche reaches Kingston Auto Works, Mr. Kermit takes out his wallet and tries to pay me for the gas. When I won't accept it, he stuffs a $20 bill into the glove compartment and gets out, not bothering to say thank you. I get out too, to receive a generous helping of the Squidward Grinch face. I can handle it from here, he assures me. I'm going in with you, I insist. I don't want you to get ripped off. These guys are all crooks. Including you? Mr. Kermit inquires innocently. I run a totally honest shop, but I still feel my cheeks flush. An old clunker like yours, the parts probably have to come from a third world. Who knows what they'll try to charge you from them. It must make an impression because Mr. Kermit actually allows me inside. The place is a dump. You could probably catch the plague just standing there and breathing air. The mechanic behind the counter instantly recognized me. Hey, you're Jake Terranova. What are you doing here? My very good friend is picking up his car, I reply pointedly. I just want to make sure he gets a fair deal. We barely know each other. Mr. Kermit sets the record straight. The mechanic picks up the clipboard. Which car? The Cocoa Nerd, the teacher tells him. The what? Mr. Kermit flushes. It's the Chrysler Concorde, 1992. One of my students calls it that. He's different. I snap my fingers. Parker, right? What's up with that kid? He's got a lot of mechanical ability, but ask him to read a name off a part. It comes out complete in pure goobly-glock. It's not goobly-glock, he says, insulted on Parker's behalf. The boy has perception problems. All he sees is letter, but his mind rearranges them. Concord goes to the Cocoa Nerd. Like an anagram, the mechanic butts in. You should meet my boss. He's an anagram maniac. You look at a word, and to you it's just jumble, but he can pick it out in a heartbeat. Poor Parker. The kid's got real potential. But how's he ever going to pass an engineering exam if he can't read the questions? All right, where's the car? The car's not ready, the mechanic tells us. There's a part coming from the Bahamas, and it's held up in customs. Instead of getting mad, Mr. Kermit acts like it's a completely different word. Anagrams, he repeats to himself slowly. He grabs my arm. Let's go. You have to stick up for yourself, I say sternly. I turn to the mechanic. Is this what you call service? If I ran my shop this way, I'd be out of business in a week. How come a part's coming from the Bahamas? By manatee? It doesn't matter, Mr. Kermit insists. Take me to the bookstore. The bookstore? You don't need books, you need wheels. Back in the Porsche, he explains what this is all about. Parker's mind turns text into anagrams. Yeah? So? So anagrams are something you can get good at, like any other puzzle. I stare at him. Solving anagrams can teach you to read? Mr. Kermit shakes his head. Of course not. Parker needs a reading specialist. If I was a half teacher, I would have gotten him one weeks ago. I'm confused. So where do anagrams fit in? The kid's reading has been a disaster for so long that he looks at it like it's magic, something he'll never be able to master. But solving anagrams will show him he can do it. So when I get him the help he needs, he'll believe the work can be done. Can you get him the help he needs, I ask? The district has reading specialists, he explains. Nobody sends them to SCS 8 because they consider the students a lost cause. That ends now. He looks at me. The bookstore! I step on the gas and the Porsche surges forward. It's amazing how Mr. Kermit's whole face changes when he's talking about kids in his class. He becomes a totally different person, younger, more alive. He's the teacher I remember from all those years ago. At the bookstore, he's a whirlwind, stacking up armloads of anagram puzzles, books tall enough for him to hold into place by chin. By this time, school is out, so he demands to be taken to Parker's house. Can't you just wait to see him tomorrow morning? I want to strike while the iron's hot. The Elias family lives just outside of the Greenwich city limits on a small farm designed to keep sports cars out. The long driveway is really just a pair of ruts worn into unpaved ground by vehicles much higher and wider than the Porsche. I can actually feel the wheels bruising the low undercarriage as we bounce along. Eventually, we come to a low wood-framed house next to the shed amid fields of tall corn. No sign of light from the house. I cut the engine off. Should I honk? Let's give it a while, Mr. Kermit decides. After about 15 minutes, Parker comes roaring up the driveway, his famous grandmother in the passenger seat of the pickup. I know the moment of agony as the kid pulls far too close behind the parked convertible. Parker is pretty bewildered to see his teacher rushing across the front lawn, toting a pile of books he can barely see. The grandmother spies me standing by my car. I know you, she calls. You're Jumpin' Jake Terranova. That's right, ma'am. Pleased to meet you. She beams. I see you on television. You'll jump through hoops to provide fast relief from painful athlete foot fungus. That's not me, I tell her. I get you a great deal on a new or used vehicle. She looks at me like I'm feeble-minded. Why would I need that? I got my grandson to drive me around. Mr. Kermit is having an animated conversation with Parker, holding up anagram books and talking a blue streak. They're well into it when a small tractor chugs out of the field, and an older, taller version of Parker hops off and he joins the group. Parker's dad is surprised that a teacher would make house calls, but as Mr. Kermit explains his plan, the man looks impressed and smiles with appreciation. The contrast is not lost on me. Mr. Elias's gratitude for a teacher who's willing to move heaven and earth to help a student versus my folks all those years ago. They rescued their son, and I'm thankful, but in the process, they hung a teacher out to dry. Mr. Kermit deserves better. I hope someday I'll get the chance to make it up to him. So boys and girls, let's think about this. Jake, think about how he feels. Definitely feels like he's kind of guilty, right? He feels bad for what's happened to Mr. Kermit, and he really wants to do what he can to help. Think about what do you think would be an appropriate way to apologize? Okay, I want you to think about that. We will start our next chapter, chapter 21, Kiana Rubini. No bikini, Aurora. This has nothing to do with bathing suits. It's an anagram of my name. Mr. Kermit has me working with Parker on anagrams to improve his reading. Parker's getting pretty good, but for me it's just fun. It's amazing the stuff you can come up with. For example, Zachary Kermit can be scrambled into crazy, tram, hike, or Aldo Brath into fold a barf. Even Aldo laughs at that one. He doesn't strike me as someone with a great sense of humor, especially about himself. He looks pretty different when he smiles, like his face is going along with all that red hair instead of fighting against it. Or maybe Aldo decides to be mellow because he doesn't have a lot of choice. His reading partner is Elaine. It's the one thing to kick a locker. A locker can't headbutt you down a flight of stairs or any other of Elaine's greatest hits, like chucking a fire extinguisher at your face or giving your new ear a piercing with a fish hook. To everybody's surprise, Elaine turns out to be kind of a serious student, which nobody noticed before, since they were too busy being terrified of her. Mr. Kermit assigns them where the red fern grows, and Elaine is totally into it. So Aldo has to read it too, even though he claims the last book he finished was Hop on Pop. The other reading group is Barnstorm, Mateo, and Raheem. This works because Mateo never shuts up, which keeps Raheem from falling asleep. Actually, Raheem is more awake lately anyway. Mr. Kermit talked to his stepdad, who agreed to move his rock band's nighttime rehearsal to an alternate venue. Guess where? An empty storage garage at Terranova Motors. Sometimes I enjoy those guys because Parker goes to a reading specialist 3 days a week. That makes 4 of us, but it's usually just 3 because Raheem isn't around much these days. Mr. Kermit got him accepted as a part-time art student at the community college on the other side of the river. Since he draws all the time anyway, it makes sense to send him somewhere that's a good thing. It's complicated, but it works. On any given day, Barnstorm might have 3 partners, or 2, or just 1. It doesn't make that much difference because the only thing he really cares about is puppy tails. We'll stop there today, boys and girls. And I want you guys to think about this. Mr. Kermit is making a lot of changes in his classroom. So when we started this book off, he was a teacher who handed out worksheets, never corrected them, never looked at them, never engaged with his students. Now, Mr. Kermit is getting Raheem accepted into an art program. He's getting other students. He's got Parker a reading specialist. He's really starting to take care of these students and do what he's supposed to do, which is teach them. So I want you guys to think about where that change is coming from and why Mr. Kermit decides he needs to step up and do this. So, until next time, boys and girls, I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and I can't wait to see you guys so very soon. I miss you so much, and I think about you constantly. Have a great day, boys and girls, and I'll see you later. Bye-bye.